Welcome to D-Lab, everyone. We have another D-Lab custom boutique amplifier creation for your review. This time I took a General Radio model 1390B random noise generator and turned it into a cool Class A 6AQ5 push-pull amplifier. So what you see here looks like a piece of military test equipment, but it's actually a very cool guitar amplifier. And I integrated the ECBA board, which I normally only used on the Class A amps. This time I used that board in a push-pull application. So we'll pop this guy open, I'll let you see what I did, and of course I've got the schematic for you. Here we go. Okay, let's start with the front panel. I tried to maintain as much of the original look of the instrument as possible, so I reused a lot of the controls, including the meter. Okay, so the power light is original, as well as the power switch. Range has become the volume control. This middle control is actually a bandwidth. So when you go over here, kind of have that Marshall sound. Straight up is Champ, and over here would be like a Fender Deluxe. So she starts out with low capacitance and sweeps to a higher capacitance that goes to the cathodes of the 12AX7 tube. This control here is the tone, which is nice because you already see it says low and high. So that was a really nice fit. This is my input jack, so this is where your guitar goes. These guys do nothing. The meter will actually respond to the notes that you're playing, and this is a sensitivity adjustment for the meter. So if you're playing low, you can crank him up. If you're really hammering on it, obviously you're going to have to throttle it back. Alright, I'm going to pop the back off, show you the top of the chassis, and then we'll go to the bottom. Alright, we'll spin this guy around, and on the way you're going to see a couple 1/4-inch jacks. This is the speaker output jacks. On the other side is my power input and fuse. The reason I mounted everything on the side is because this back slides off, right? So obviously I couldn't put anything in the back, could I? Alright, let's do the top side tour. One thing I wanted to point out initially is this chassis and cabinet is all solid aluminum. All this military grade stuff. Really nice for building amps on. So these two tubes are the 6AQ5 output tubes, and they are actually the original Sylvania tubes that came in this instrument. So that's a plus if you guys want to build this thing, alright? So my output transformer is a Hammond 125H. This is one of my generic power transformers, puts out around 420 volt center tap, and it also has a 6.3 AC filament line. Okay, you see this hole back here, that hole is where the 12AX7 socket used to reside. So I shifted that over. I did have to drill one hole to add the 6AV6 inverter tube. This is my filter capacitor. These are sold by Amplified Parts. They're relatively cheap. I think these are only like $8, and they really look nice on the chassis. You do have to buy the bracket to mount it, but instead of using individual caps, I highly recommend you guys check out Amplified Parts and pick up one of these dual 50 microfarad can type capacitors. Okay, I reuse the output meter, and look at there, this guy is dated May 15th 1964. I don't know if you can see that, but that's very cool. My pot is right here for the sensitivity. This is a 50K potentiometer. My input jack is a Switchcraft, and of course these are the terminals that are going to those front banana jacks that aren't used anymore. Let's take a look underside. Alright, here we are, guys, bottom side, the place where everything is happening in this new D-Lab amplifier. Star of the show this time being the D-Lab ECBA driver board. In the past, I've only used this board for Class A circuits. You've seen a whole bunch of those, but some of you wrote into me and said, Terry, is it possible to use that board in a push-pull amplifier? Well, here it is, guys. I did it. Now, the circuitry is not on this board, but all the preamp circuitry is. Then you simply take your signal out and you go to your inverter tube, which is nothing more than a handful of resistors and a couple caps. I am working on a revised board that integrates the push-pull output, but right now I just don't have it ready. I promise you guys I will produce that board in the future. Alright, so let's walk through the amp real quick. Alright, my power transformer is here. These red lines are the 120 AC coming in. I utilize the original power switch and this really cool Joule lamp. Okay, very military grade. I love it. Over here is the high voltage output, and the blue is the 6.3 AC output for the filaments. We go through a couple diodes, which are 1N 4007s. We hit that 2-section 50 microfarad filter cap. From there, we go on to the ECBA. Here's my screen resistor, the 1K. Then we go through a 10K resistor, and I have another cap tucked back here. This is a 22 microfarad 400 volt cap for the other side of the 10K dropping resistor. From there, it goes over and feeds the plate supply to the 12AX7 tube. This is my volume pot. This is the bandwidth pot, which you see is a dual type potentiometer, and it actually sweeps between 1 microfarad or 22 microfarad to the cathodes of the 12AX7 preamp tube, which obviously will swing your bandwidth. So a Marshall sound, let's say, is the 1 microfarad, and a Fender sound would be the 22s. So take a look at some of your schematics and you'll see what I did there. But you have to use a dual pot. If you use a single pot, you can actually tie those cathodes together and cause some problems. Okay, so the dual pot is for isolation. Over here is my tone control. That's a 500K pot, and it swings between the .0047 cap, which is over here, and the 500 picofarad cap. And obviously that just goes to the volume control and gives you that frequency shift depending on what you're after. Alright, so then we got some little jumpers that swing off this board and feed the 12AX7 tube. Then the 12AX7 tube couples through the .022 microfarad cap. The pink line here goes into the inverter circuit. The inverter feeds these .047 caps that couple to the grids of the 6AQ5 output tubes. There's some little 560K resistors hidden down here. They're going from the grid to ground, and this guy is biased through the 470 ohm resistor with a 100 microfarad 100 volt cap bypassing it. So there it is, guys. Oh, one thing over here, we talked about this. This is the speaker output coming off of the Hammond 125H output transformer. So we have our 8 ohm and our 4 ohm output, and then you see this little shielded cable down here. There's actually a diode sitting here, and that goes up to the pot that feeds the output meter. A very basic setup, but it works great. So the next thing is, what does it sound like? Well, guess what? I actually have somebody over here to play it rather than me plucking a few notes for you. So let's take a look. Yeah, that's those old military Sylvania output tubes, man. I couldn't believe they were good.
What about what are the transformers?
It's just a generic 250 volt power transformer. It's got the Hammond 125H output transformer.
Sam sounds as a good sound.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're in the Fender mode right now. Cool meter, huh? Yeah. I want to get a close up on that. Is it all right, huh? So I had that on the Marshall sound for that, man. She was a little brasher.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool, man.
That
Sounds pretty darn good, huh?
sounds really good.
All right, guys, another cool creation from D-Lab Electronics, and I'll provide you guys all the information you need to build it yourself, okay? So you got to search these things out, reconfigure it, and you'll have a cool amp. But before I end the video, we got the old ring for wine bell, and I have a new person serving me wine, and as a matter of fact, she came here the other day to my back door with an empty wine glass. I opened the door, she's like, "You got any wine?" So it is time for her to give D-Lab a little payback. Isn't that right? Come on now, come on, people are waiting to see this. Okay, it's the pour. We got some Robert Mondavi.
Yeah, heavy hand here.
Yeah.
Just like you poured it for me the other
Excellent. Yeah, well, I didn't pour you that much.
night.
This is kind of between a normal and a trashy pour.
Cheers.
Right? Yeah, cheers. It's Pam, my neighbor, guys. I hope you enjoy the videos. There's a lot more to come. So as a reminder, guys, my goal for 2022, even though the year looks like it might be derailing a little bit, is to get to 100K subscribers. So do what you can to help me out. I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for being part of the D-Lab family. We'll see you again soon.